So the Wi-Fi settings, you can set the Bluetooth connection, you can set your Wi-Fi to, you know, to enable the Wi-Fi, enable the Bluetooth. If you're not using Wi-Fi, then you don't need to have these enabled. I don't use Wi-Fi that much, so I think I'll disable all of this because I don't really use it. I don't use it with my phone either. Some people do use it with the phone and also connect it to the computer, but I haven't been doing that. I've just been transferring my images with the SD card. So you can, I'm going to disable this for now. If I ever want to put it back on, I can always enable it again. And I'm just going to disable this as well. That's the name of my camera. The GPS, you can enable it, or if you've got a if you've got a GPS receiver, you can set that up, but I haven't got one, so I don't need to bother with that. So I'll just leave that. And then you can clear all your wireless settings. If you've changed your wireless settings and you want to reset them, you can clear them. So this is like tools you can use. Like with the images, you can have the file number in as continuous, or you can reset it to start from 0. I'll just have a continuous. So if you took an image, say you take 500 images, and then you put the SD card back into the camera, if you take more images, you want it to continue from 500, so it will go to 501 rather than starting from 0 again, because then it's going to get confusing. And then you can reset it manually. You can have auto rotate on for your camera and the computer, or just the computer, or have it off. So if you take an image, so if you took an image like that in portrait mode, and when you look back on it, if you have auto rotate on, you would only see it like on your screen, so it would only be like let's just go back to that page. So it would just come this part of your screen, but if you have it on, if you turn your camera like that, you can see it. If you have it off, I mean, just have it on for your PC is probably the best thing, because if you have it on for this, you won't be able to see it in full. And you can format your card on here, so when you format your card, it resets everything and it deletes all the images. So don't format your card until you have uploaded them onto your computer, or you don't want them anymore, otherwise your images will be gone forever. So the next page, we've got auto power off. So this camera's going to switch off if I don't use it after 15 minutes. The display brightness you can change, so you can turn it down a bit, or you can just leave it in the middle. I've just left mine where it is. Screen off on button remains on, or you can have it shut on the shutter button. You can set your time and date. And I've got it set to London. Language English, but there is lots of languages you can choose. And then video system PAL, I think America's NTSC. In the touch control, you can have it standard or sensitive. I've just got mine on standard. The beep, I've got it enabled. Headphone volumes, you can change that if you want to. Battery information tells me I've got 20% left in the battery. It tells me I can press the shutter 258 times, and the battery performance, recharge performance is good. Sensor cleaning, oops, let's go back. Sensor cleaning, I've automatically got it enabled. You can clean it now, and all it does is it vibrates inside to shake the dust off the sensor, to stop your sensor getting clogged with dust. Or you can clean it manually yourself. So if you clean it manually yourself, it tells you the mirror will go up, clean the sensor. And then you can use these special swabs you can buy to clean the sensor if you think your sensor might be dirty. But I've got the automatic on, and what happens is every time I switch the camera off, it's automatically cleans the sensor. So if I switch this off, no, I'll just leave it on for now, but if I switched it off, it would tell me it was cleaning the sensor. So we'll go back to the menu. Mode guide, I've got that enabled, so sometimes it comes up with little messages telling me about the different modes and features. The text, you can have it on small or standard. I've got mine on standard. Viewfinder display, electronic level, I've got hidden. I really don't know why I need to have that showing. Let's just show it and see what it looks like. Honestly, don't know what that is, to be fair. Grid show and flicker detection show. So if something does start flickering while you're out, it will alert you with a little sign if you've got that on show. And then you can then set it to have the deflicker on if you want to. Information button display options. So you can have it on electronic level. You can have it on the quick control screen. So the electronic level, you've got this like horizon level. So when you turn it, you can see if you're level or not. I'm going to keep it on the quick control screen so it's easy to get to these settings if I want to. HDMI resolution, if you were using the TV, you could set that to where you want it. Then you've got the multifunction lock. So this lock button here, you can set it so when you lock it, it locks. At the moment it's set to lock the aperture, like this dial, but you can set it to lock this dial. You can set it to lock other dials as well. You can tell it to lock the screen. So it stops you from touching it and changing things. Or you can have nothing locked on it. So the quick control dial's locked. I don't think you can have nothing locked on it. You've got to have something locked on it. I think I'll leave that one locked on it, and then if I do lock it by mistake, I don't use this one that much. I'll say okay to that one. So the custom control shooting mode, I did tell you about this in the last video. So like if you wanted to, so the mode button, the mode button on the top here, if you wanted to use like the C1, like a custom C1 or the custom C2, if you want to have ready-made settings already in your camera so it's easy to get to them, like if you use them a lot, or if it's a setting like when I was saying, if I see a bird in flight, you need a fast shutter speed for a bird in flight, and at least 2,000ths of a second. Sometimes you need more than that, depending on the wingspan of the bird and how fluttery their wings are. So so my C1 setting, if I'll just show you what that setting is. So this is the setting I've got. I've got it on 32 hundredths of a second, so that should be fast enough to capture most birds in flight. I've got it set at aperture 5 because if I've got a lens that only goes down to, stops down to a 5, at least it's going to work with that lens. I've got the ISO on auto. The reason being is if the shutter speed is too high for the light, I want the ISO to just automatically adjust itself. Because if a bird's in flight, you know, if it's been sitting on a fence and then it suddenly flies off, you haven't got time to start messing around, setting the ISOs and everything else. So you want to be able to snap it immediately, that, you know, you can get your thing ready, your C1 ready, and then as soon as the bird flies, you can snap it straight away. You haven't got to start fiddling with settings. So I've got it on AI servo. This is you know, it's for the subject that's moving, that one. And I've got it set for the you know, the smallest frames up and try to capture like that. You might want to actually, I might change that so it's a bigger setting, because if a bird's moving you might want to have that auto focus on a larger part. And I've got it on high speed shutter release, so it takes more than one image, it takes a few images at a time. And I've got it on RAW and JPEG. So those are the settings I've set. I haven't actually used it yet with these settings. I might have to go and experiment with it to make sure those settings are what I want on that particular C1 setting. So to set it, I'll show you how to do that. It's not easy to do it. It would be easier if you could just set those settings on the C1, and then when you turn it off and go to another setting, and when you move back to it, it would stay on. But that doesn't happen. Well, it does now because I've set it, so it happens. But it didn't happen when I first tried to do it, just by going to here and trying changing the settings in here. They didn't stay on. So to get them set, what you have to do is in this custom shooting mode here. But before you go in the custom shooting mode here, you've got to go into the manual setting, open your manual setting up, and then you've got to set what you want for that particular setting. So if you wanted it on like high shutter speed, you would set, like, just say if I wanted it on say 4,000ths of a second, you're going to have to reduce, going to have to go in here, you're going to have to reduce the aperture really, because it's very little. It's going to be hard to find the right light to have such a narrow aperture with such a high shutter speed. So you need to have the aperture low. It's wide, it's a wide aperture, but it's low number. The ISO will have to be automatic just so you get enough light for that high shutter speed. So you would have to change that to automatic. And then you can change all the other settings if you want all the other settings changing as well. So once you've set it in manual, right, I've got this on manual. You then go into the custom shooting mode here, and then you click on that, and then you click on register settings, and I'm going to change that to number 2. Register camera settings to custom shooting mode 2. OK. So it's set those settings now. If you want to clear the settings, you can click on clear settings. So now when I go to C2, it's got all those settings. And if I go off it, so if I go back to manual, no, AV say, I go back to AV, and then I'll go back to that C2, it's got all those settings saved, so they're all there for you ready if you need them. So you can use, so I've got the C1 set to the 3200th of a second. You could have one of these set for your video settings or one set for the camera settings. It's up to you which one you want to use. And then you can have clear all camera settings in there. If some of them are grayed out, it's because some of the others, I think the reason why you can't clear all your camera settings is because you've got the shooting mode. And if you were selling your camera and you wanted to clear all the camera settings, you're going to have to clear all the C1 and C2s first, and you've got to have this. Actually, I think it's just because that's on there. So if I change that onto manual, and then we'll go on there. Oh yeah. So you can't clear all your camera settings if it's on C1 or C2, but it might be another setting as well you can't do it on. But if you want to clear all your camera settings, make sure it's not on C1 or C2. Obviously, you might want to clear all your camera settings if you've made a hash of it and you want to start from scratch again, or if you're selling your camera or you're lending your camera to somebody, you might want to clear all your camera settings for that. Copyright information, you can add your name in there if you want to. So the copyright information, if you wanted to add copyright to your images, you can add your information in here. You can type in your name, and so if we just cancel that, and you can type in your copyright details as well. If you were wanting to say sell your images to say stock image websites, I think most of them don't like you to put the copyright details in there, but you would need to check with the company before you did that. The manual software, you can change the URL, certification, logo, display, firmware. I've got the 1.1.1. I know this is the latest one for me because I checked it. To check if you have got the latest one, you need to go onto the Canon website to check for the latest software update. And these are the custom controls. Like if you're an experienced photographer and you want to change all of the settings, you can do that. But if you're not, I've just left them. I don't change them. And then in here you can set you know, like settings that you want to access quickly. So if you wanted to go in here and quickly change that, you know, your favorite settings that you use quite a lot, you can put them in here. Like the multiple exposure, if you wanted to change that, you could change it in here. HDR mode, you could quickly change it in here. And so you can add, you know, menu tabs as well to the favorites at the end there. So that is all the menu settings for the images, but we've got this set to images. So if we change that now to video, go in the menu settings for the video, so the menu settings for the video, if we click on to the first one on the first page, you can change the movies. This is the 4K 25 frames a second. It's easier to explain the movie recording settings using the instruction manual. You can pause these screens on your video to have a proper read of them. So it says here under the movie recording quality tab, set the image size, frame rate and compression method. The movie will be recorded as an MP4 file. The frame rate displayed on the movie recording size screen switches automatically depending on the video system setting. So you can go to page 520 to read more about that. The note is the card's writing and reading speeds required for recording movies vary depending on the movie recording size. Before recording movies, see page 617 to check the performance requirements of the card. We'll have a look at that in a second. So the image size for the 4K is 3840 times 2160, so that's a general 4K quality video, and the aspect ratio is 16.9. Then there's a 1920 by 1080 full HD quality, which is 16.9, and then there's a 1280 by 720, which is also considered high definition quality. The aspect ratio is 16.9. If you change the video system setting and also set the movie recording size again, normal playback of 4K and the FHD movies may not be possible on other devices because playback is processing intensive. Clarity and noise vary depending on movie recording quality and cropped shooting settings. Movies cannot be recorded in VGA quality. 4K movie recording. Recording 4K movies requires a high performance card for DSLR cards that can record movies on 617. Recording 4K movies greatly increases the processing load, which may cause the camera's internal temperature to increase faster or become higher than for regular movies. So it looks like if you're recording in 4K, your camera's going to heat up. If a red icon or that icon appears during movie recording, the card may be hot, so stop recording the movie and let the camera cool down before removing the card. Do not remove the card immediately. So don't remove the card while the camera is still hot. From a 4K movie, you can select any frame to save as an approximate 8.3 megapixel JPEG still image to the card. With 4K movie cropping set to enable, you can record movies cropped around the center of the screen as if shot using a telephoto lens. Note that time-lapse movies are not recorded cropped even if enable is set. So if you use the cropping, it's sort of like zooming in using a zoom lens. So the frame rates, frame per second, there's a 59.94, 29.97 and 23.98 for areas where the TV system is NTSC, North America, Japan, South Korea and Mexico, etc. 50 frames a second or 25 frames a second for areas where the TV system is PAL, which is Europe, Russia, China, Australia, etc. Compression method. IPB standard compresses multiple frames at a time efficiently for recording. IPB light, since the movie is recorded at a bit rate lower than the IPB standard, the file size may be smaller than with IPB standard and the playback compatibility will be higher. Movie recording format. All movies you shoot with the camera are recorded as movie files in MP4 format. Cards that can record movies. For details on cards, you can use the various movie recording sizes. See page 617. So let's go to page 617. So, movie recording, cards that can record movies. So for 4K, 29 frames a second, 25 frames a second, and 23.98. IPB, you need a UHS-1, UHS speed class 3 or higher. And then for these other ones, you need a SD speed class 10 or higher. SP speed class 4 or higher. 4K time-lapse movies, reading speed of 40 megabytes or faster. Full HD time-lapse movie, reading speed of 20 megabytes or faster. So As long as you get one that's more than 40 megabytes and more than a class 10, you should be alright. Or with class 10 or higher, you should be alright. So recording with a high frame rate, it's easier to show you using this instruction manual. You can record full HD movies at a high frame rate of 119.88 frames per second, so that's like 120 frames a second, or 100 frames a second. This is ideal for recording movies that will be played back in slow motion. The maximum recording time per movie is 7 minutes 29 seconds. Movies are recorded as that FHD 119 IPB or FHD 100 IPB. They are recorded cropped around the center of the shooting screen. Movie Servo AF and Movie Digital IS have no effect when recording high frame rate movies. AF is not used to focus. Full HD recording, high frame rate recording 2. So the number 1, this is like your full recording, and a high frame recording, it's cropping it, you can see there. Because high frame rate movies are recorded at 29.97 frames or 25 frames per second movie files, they are played back in slow motion at 1/4 speed. Check the movie recording size setting if you return this setting to disable. The screen may flicker if you record high frame rate movies under fluorescent or LED lighting. For a moment, when you start or stop recording high frame rate movies, the movie is not updated and the frame stops momentarily. Be aware of this when recording movies to external devices via HDMI. Movie frame rate shown on the screen as you record high frame rate movies do not correspond to the frame rate of the movie recorded. Sound is not recorded with the high frame rate movies. Sound recording, I've just got that set to auto. If you talk into it and you can watch the little bars moving, if you've got a loud voice you might want to drop that down a bit, or if you've got a very quiet voice you might want to increase that a bit. So if we change it to manual, we can turn that up a bit if we want to. Right, I'm going to disable the wind filter because sometimes it can change your audio quality as well. Actually, leave it on auto. I'm just going to leave the wind filter on automatic. So the record level, I've got this set a bit higher because my voice isn't that loud anyway. If I was recording, you can make it even higher by turning that. If you see, you can watch how high it goes, and you can decide. If you were shouting and it was going right to the top, you might want to turn it down a little bit. If you were shouting, 1, 2, 3. So that seems to be about right. So I'm just going to set that OK. And then the wind filter, I've just got that on automatic. Some people like to turn it off because it can change the audio sound. The movie digital IS, I've just got that disabled. Lens correction, I've just got that disabled as well. Time-lapse movie, I've got that disabled. If you enable it, then you lose settings for some of the other settings. But if you wanted to enable it, you would you can choose like the interval, what movie size you wanted, the auto exposure if you wanted it fixed on the first frame. You know, you can do those settings. So I'm just going to disable it because I'm not doing any time lapses at the moment. Remote control, So if you were doing a wireless remote control, you could set it, and I have got a wireless one somewhere, although I don't use it that often. Now the video snapshot, you can take a snapshot of your 4K video, but not available because of the associated function setting, movie record quality. Okay, so I don't know if I changed some of the other settings, whether that would change that. If I would, let's just go to the movie quality. We'll change that to 1080p. And then if it won't let you do a snapshot with that one either. So what movie quality do we need for the snapshot to work? 25 frames a second. Oh, we can do it on the 25 frames a second. So you can take a snapshot of your video if you were using 25 frames a second in the 1080p mode. Well, I'm just going to move this back to 4K. So I have to get it back to 4K now. I've got to disable this. And then go back to my menu. And now we can change this back to 4K, like that. Set. So right, so with this one you've got exposure compensation. Is not letting me do it because of some functions in some of the other settings I've got. The speed ISO, it's more or less the same as what it was for the other one. You can just change the ISO. Automatic light optimizer is disabled in manual or bulb modes. High tone priority, highlight tone priority, I've got that set to off. Automatic slow shutter, not available in current shooting mode. So the mode I've got is manual. So if you wanted to change that to say, let's say if I change this to AV, you can have automatic record brighter movies when dark, records movies with smooth subject movement when dark. I'm going to set that on, and then the meter and timer, you can change that if you want to. White balance is automatic, you can change that. You can do a custom white balance. You can change the picture style. I've got that automatic. So with the videos, if you set your picture style to one of the other ones, like monochrome for example, it would be a black and white movie, and then you couldn't make it colour again. But if you had it set to automatic, it would be a colour movie, and then you can change it to black and white post in like one of the softwares like Premiere Pro or Cyberlink Power Director. High ISO speed, noise reduction, I've just got that on standard. HDMI information display, I've just got that on. AF method, I've got it on the tracking, so if somebody was moving it would track them. Movie servo enabled, eye detection enabled. So that would find the eye in the person. It would automatically focus on the eye if you had a, like if you were filming somebody. And then lens electronic, disable after one shot, enable after one shot. I've just got that disabled. Alright, so with the AF sensor, you would have to have it on AF, this setting, not on tracking, but you would have to have it on AF for this track sensor to work. I'm just going to change that back to tracking. And it'll be the same with that one. But the MF peaking set, you can have it change into red. So in the instruction manual, you can see there, in live view shooting, edges of the subject in focus can be displayed in colour to make focusing easier, and you can set the outline colour and adjust the sensitivity level. So you can just pause the video and have a proper read of that if you wanted to set your MF manual focus peaking. So it's just like the it's like the photograph. We've already been through all of these. And so the next one is the wireless settings. Then you've got the tools where you can have continuous number and the same. The auto power, the language, the date, the display brightness, type of video systems. We've been through all these already. So we've been through the shooting mode, C1, C2s. You can clear all your camera settings, copyright information, and before, and your favourites here. So that's all the settings for the images and for the video. There are a lot of pages to go through. Obviously, getting to know your camera is going to help you take better images. So there is a lot to learn. If you are very new to using a camera, then it's probably best to stick with the automatic setting for the time being until you understand more, or you could use the C mode. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you've learned something from it. Until the next video, bye for now.